Today I'm going to be sharing with you every single plugin that I put on my drum bus. I will also be explaining what each plugin is accomplishing for my drums in regards to making them sound cohesive and polished. So as always, let's hop right in and get to it. All right, so first off, let's just discuss how I have my drum bus routed. A lot of people do this in different ways, but for me personally, I like to route things like my kick drum, my snare, my claps, my snaps, and my rim shots all to my drum bus. Now, what I don't send to my drum bus are my high-end percussives. So this would include things like hi-hats, cymbals, shakers, tambourines, anything of that nature that takes up the high-end frequency range as far as the drum goes. I will send those to their own separate bus for processing. They will end up summing together with the drums later on. And the same thing goes for my basses and my 808s. I will route those to their own separate bus for processing, and then they'll join together with the drums and the high-end percussives later on in the process. Now, the reason that I do this is so that I have control over each level of sounds or groups of sounds as they join together on the master channel. I can process each of these groups separately before they sum together, and then when they do sum together, I have control over how that summing will sound. Every step of the way in mixing, you want to have control over how things are joined together. So to begin with, let's go ahead and start with my drums. And remember, this is my kicks, my snares, my claps, rim shots, and things of that nature. You'll see here in the mixer that I have all of them in gold, so the kick and all of the snares are routed to mixer track number 6, which is what I have labeled as my drum bus. So the first plugin that I have on my drum bus is the Waves Studio Rack plugin. Now this is a really cool plugin that has a lot of capabilities, but here I'm just using it because it gives you 8 additional plugin slots. And what I have going on here with the Studio Rack plugin is a technique that I picked up from watching a Jaycen Joshua video. Now really this entire drum bus is inspired by him, but what we have going on is 8 Waves NLS bus plugins loaded in a row. So if we open up the first NLS bus plugin, you'll see that we have 3 separate analog emulations to choose from. We have Spike, Mic, and Nevo. And that's really all this plugin is doing. It's emulating the analog circuitry of a big analog mixing console. So what he does is he loads 8 of these plugins in a row, and what you'll see is that the drums just get thicker. And I'll show you visually what I mean when I finish explaining this plugin chain. So on the first NLS bus that we have pulled up here, you'll see that it's set to mic. Now, another thing to point out is that the drive knob right here is set at 0.5. Now, the second NLS bus is set to spike. This is emulating an SSL board. Now, the third, fourth, and the fifth NLS bus plugins, they're all set to the mic emulation, as you can see right here. Now, the sixth plugin is set to spike. The seventh plugin is set to Nevo, and this is emulating a Neve board. And something to point out is that the trim knob here is set to -2 decibels. When you stack all of these NLS bus plugins on top of each other, you're going to start to get some added volume. So it's just best for proper gain staging to utilize the trim knob to dial it back. And finally, the 8th plugin is set to mic. And a quick note to point out, these NLS bus plugins are going to slightly pan your drums off from the center of your mix. And that's because analog hardware isn't perfect, right? There's weird things going on with the electronics and with the circuitry that's going to make them wear down over time and cause slight variations in their signal. But long story short, right after the NLS bus plugins, I like to load a panning plugin to pan the drums back to the center of the mix. So you see right here, my pan knob is slightly to the left to bring the drums back towards the middle. So let's go ahead and take a listen to the drums with the NLS bus plugin chain activated, and then I'll turn the plugin chain off so that way you can hear the difference. Now here I have a spatial analyzer pulled up, so that way we can really visually see what's going on with the drums. Okay, so quite the difference. The drums literally just had more body and width added when the NLS bus plugin chain was engaged. And as soon as I turned the NLS bus plugins off, the drums just went flat. They were a skinny line coming up the middle of our mix, as you could see on the spatial analyzer. So the NLS chain is just giving our drum bus that extra lift to start things off. So next on the drum bus, I have the Waves R-Bass. Now the R-Bass is just going to add harmonics to the drums. It's going to provide that psychoacoustic effect where it makes us feel like we have more low end in our mix than we actually have. And these harmonics are created from whatever frequency we have set right here at the bottom of the plugin. Now 80 Hertz is always a good spot to start with, but I do adjust this if needed anywhere from 80 to 120 Hertz. For me, that seems to be the sweet spot for adding harmonics to the drums. And these harmonics are just making us feel like we have more low end than we actually do. So it's set right here at 80 Hertz. It's going to make us feel like we have more 80 Hertz in the mix. And that's going to make things like our kick drums stick out more on smaller speakers that can't really reproduce those low end frequencies. Now the intensity knob right here I have set at -10, and this basically controls how much of this effect is added to our signal. And then here I have the output knob turned down to -2 for proper gain staging, because you will get some added volume with this plugin. So let's go ahead and take a listen as I bypass this plugin on and off so you can hear the difference. All right, so next up on the drum bus, we have a compressor, and this particular plugin is the Shadow Hills Mastering Compressor. And it's basically a two-stage compressor. So you have the optical compressor up top, and then at the bottom, you have the discrete compressor, as well as an output transformer stage here in the middle of the plugin. So I have the transformer section set to steel, but there's actually 3 algorithms to choose from. The transformer section is just going to add a little bit more analog character to the drum bus on top of the compression that is provided with this plugin. Now, as far as the compression goes, I'm usually only getting 1 to 2 decibels of compression at most for each compressor. So for the optical compressor up top, I have the optical threshold set to where I'm only hitting the compressor for about 1 decibel of gain reduction, and then I'm making it up with the optical output gain knob right here. And for the discrete compressor, it's the same setup, except you have an attack and a release. So I have the release set to the fastest setting possible, and then I have the attack set to the slowest setting possible to maintain some of that transient that you get with the drums. So let's go ahead and take a listen to the before and after as I turn the compressor on and off. Okay, so as you saw and heard, I was barely getting any compression. And in my opinion, you don't really want too much compression at the bus level. I try to tackle compression on an individual track basis. But what I really do love about this compressor here is that output transformer section. We're really just getting some added weight to our drums here with the steel setting, right? We're only getting 1 decibel of compression, but we're just getting that extra boost in the low end. And I'm really wanting to do anything I can to knock some of that digital feeling off of the drums and make them feel more analog. Now, the next thing that I add to my drum bus is the black box plugin. So here you have the pinto knob, and that's gonna add even order harmonics to the drums. And then you have the trio knob, and that's gonna add odd order harmonics. And then you also have a saturation knob right here, and that's gonna blend in some parallel saturation coming into the pinto knob circuit. And then you also have an air knob over here that's going to just help bring out some of that top end brightness in the drums. Now, sometimes I do turn this off depending on how bright my drums are coming into the drum bus and how they react to the plugin chain. And then I also have the output gain knob dialed back a bit because you will get added volume with the saturation and the added harmonics. But just like with all of the other plugins, we are trying to add these harmonics and saturation to the drums because the drums need that warmth and that heaviness to them. And that's really the name of the game. So let's go ahead and take a listen to what this plugin is doing. I'll turn the plugin on and off so you can hear the difference. All right, so the black box is just adding that tube saturation and volume to the drums without really raising the peak level too much. And that's a huge part in how you get your mix to be loud. You make things be perceived as loud without necessarily just raising their volume fader. So that's pretty much it as far as my main drum bus goes. Now switching over here to the bass bus, you'll see that I have the exact same processing as I have on the drum bus. But the reason I have the bass routed separately from the drums is so if I need to make any adjustments to the bass, I can do that separate of the drums before they join together. Sometimes the bus processing does need minor tweaks, and so having control over each sound as they join together at each level is very important. Having the drum group and the bass group separate is very necessary in my opinion. So since I've already gone over this plugin chain for my drum bus, I don't want to re-explain it here on the bass bus, but all you really need to know is that I have my 808 routed to the bass bus. That was really the only kind of bass element in this song, but if I had things like a bass guitar or anything of that nature, it would be routed to the bass bus as well. And you'll see here that the bass bus is routed out towards mixer track number 5, and this is labeled as drums and bass. So this is where the bass bus and the drum bus are going to join together. So if I click on the drum bus, you'll see that it also is routed over here to mixer track number 5. And this is where our drums and our bass are going to join together. So on the drums and bass bus, you'll see that I have this standard clip plugin loaded. And basically all this plugin is doing is shaving off the peaks of the drums and the bass as they sum together. Now, if you do this correctly, you won't even really notice a difference in the actual sound. But the whole objective of this is to bring your peak level down. The drums are typically what peak the loudest in a mix. So if you can find a way to bring those peaks down, you won't hit that final limiter as hard. So we're looking to maintain our loudness, but by peaking lower, we're gonna have more headroom to drive our entire mix at the end during mastering. So let's go ahead and take a listen to the drums as I turn this plugin on and off. And when I do that, I want you to pay attention to the meter over here on the left side of the mixer. Okay, so as you saw with the plugin turned on, I was at the same loudness level as with the plugin turned off, but I was actually peaking lower on our loudness meter. So this is how you save yourself headroom for your entire mix. Now we're only clipping off about 1 to 2 decibels of our drums and bass. If you try to clip off more than that, you're gonna start to hear a difference and it's gonna become less transparent. Now on standard clip, I do have the hard clip mode engaged, but you can experiment with soft clipping if you want. For me, hard clipping on my drums just sounds better. But I also like to turn on the oversampling right here to ×4. Oversampling is just going to make your drums a little bit higher quality when they run through this clipping plugin. So do this if you can, but as you begin to increase your oversampling, your computer is going to start to slow down. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so the last thing I want to go over for my drums is the high-end percussives. And this includes things like my hi-hats, my open hats, my crashes, and my cymbals. And really the only thing I have going on with this bus is this preamp plugin right here called the Little Radiator by Sound Toys. And all it's really doing is what this knob right here says. It's adding heat, it's adding sizzle to the high end of my mix. So my hi-hats are just gonna kind of take a step forward with this plugin turned on. And you'll see right here that I utilize the mix knob right here to kind of dial in the exact amount of this effect that I want. Now, after the preamp plugin, I also have an EQ right here just to clean up and take away some of that low end that might be hanging out on the high end bus. So I don't want any of those frequencies to kind of get in the way of my kick and my snare and my 808. Now, if you take a look at the high end bus and how it's routed, you'll see that it is sending the signal out to mixer track number 4 and this is titled the All Drums bus. So the All Drums bus is also where the drums and bass bus is routed to. So this is where my high-end percussives, my bass bus, and my drum bus are all joining together. Now, I don't have any plugins loaded here on the All Drums bus, but if I need to automate the volume of the drums or anything like that, I can do that with the All Drums bus right here. So the last thing we'll do is just listen to the All Drums bus with everything feeding into it, the drums, the bass, and the high-end perks, and just kind of get a feel for how everything sounds when it's summed together as one.
Sleep, that don't bother me now. Stay right here, can you promise me that when the stars fade into the morning light, you be by my side? If this car breaks down without a doubt, you still down for the ride? Is this reality or are we stuck inside of a dream? This world been spinning faster ever since you stepped to the scene. The way I see it got me thinking as I take it all in. I put my pride to the side, let it go with the wind.
All right, so that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the content. Please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.